If you're here to speak under public comments on a particular item on the agenda, please fill out a request to speak card. I'm assuming that we have those already in. If you haven't filled in one in, please do so and turn it into the city clerk. And the cards are located near the doors at the back of the chambers. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Spriggs?
Here.
Councilmember West?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bragg?
Here.
Mayor Dedina?
Here. Sorry.
Councilmember Patton is absent.
Thank you. And now we have Dominic Heyman from IB Boy Scout Troop 866 from St. James here to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you so much for being here.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dominic. And Dominic's here doing a project for one of a merit badge, and he has to attend a city council meeting and talk to a city official. So thanks for participating in our civic life. More than you expected when you came. I appreciate that. Any agenda changes?
Not that I'm aware of. Nope.
I guess maybe we can just pull the support for that 2.4 just to give a little update. I know Mr. Barron's here to talk on that as well.
Would you like to do that right before public comment, right after public comment?
After public comment, so we can do it. Yeah. Okay. Does that work for that? We need a motion on that, I guess.
Yeah.
Vote, yeah.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously by those present.
Great, thank you. And then we'll have to approve that too. Okay. Great. Starting with Mr. Councilmember Spriggs, updates, report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just three quick items. One, on the Super 8 motel issue in San Diego. I want to thank the great job Andy Hall did. I imagine the mayor collaborated with you on that, on the letter to the city of San Diego, reflecting the council's position on the location of the SMART program that's going to be housed in the Super 8 motel, making the distinction between us supporting the program, but in light of everything going on in the corridor or everything not going on in the corridor and the problems, that's not the right location for that activity. So thank you very much. It was a well done letter. The Metro JPA just met 2 Thursdays ago, right after our last city council meeting, and there are some major things happening with the whole metropolitan water and sewer situation that involves like millions of dollars, and I'll provide more details after our next meeting. But the city of San Diego is actively pursuing legislation to allow the Point Loma water treatment plant to operate without a $2 to $3 billion upgrade to secondary treatment, which would of course be paid by the ratepayers, including Metro members and ourselves. Meanwhile, at the same time, the Metro JPA, the participating agencies, along with San Diego, are working to create a lower cost alternative to their pure water plans that would incorporate Point Loma treatment into this and essentially, eventually in the long term, make it a secondary treatment plant, but part of the pure water program. So that's kind of all in the works. I can't go into any details because it's fairly sensitive discussions that are taking place, but it's all really for the good and all will save us, tens of millions of dollars in the San Diego region if it all works out the way we're thinking it will at this point. Finally, the California Ocean Protection Council just came out today with their draft guidelines, sea level rise guidelines, and there's about a 30-day comment period, and I look forward to, as we did with the Coastal Commission's guidelines, working with city staff, city manager, and Jim Nakagawa and others on the city staff, and making sure that we comment on those guidelines because they are going to influence how we do our own local coastal program amendment and general plan amendment, which we're working on right now. So really all I've got to report, and look forward to working with you on that.
Great, thank you.
Mayor, I was just going to make a public statement. We put Councilman Spriggs over there because he has a cold, so we separated him. So if you come up to the podium, be very careful.
Great, Mr. West.
Good evening, everyone. Probably the most exciting, as your South County EDC board member, I participated in the board meeting that was held on November 7th. Two things were really covered that day were the State Route 11, which is a very exciting extension of 905 to a new border crossing, which is hopefully will decrease border. Most of the trucks are going to be going through that entryway now, so that's a good proposal. And then also the Dr. Kindred Murillo, who is the superintendent of Southwestern College, came and spoke as well, and she gave how the economic impacts are happening for the Southwestern College throughout South San Diego. So it was very interesting, and thank you for coming with me, Andy. And then on November 11th, we all participated. I saw many of the council there in the Dunes Park Veterans Celebration, which was near and dear to my heart. The Fleet Reserve, the American Legion, VFW, IB Women's Club, the Historical Society, Boy Scouts, South Bay Union, Urgent Care, were all in attendance. It was a great local event. I had a great time myself, and it was fun. And then participated with the IB Boys and Girls Club and United Methodist Church about some Sierra Club, the Sierra service project that's coming. I've got some information about it. It's going to be housed at the Boys and Girls Club, right, Aaron? So they're going to have about 6 weeks of work that they're going to be doing here in Imperial Beach, and they're looking for events that they can do at people's houses and in the community, so it's really cool. And then upcoming November 18th, I highly recommend this Saturday. There's the Sustainability Fair at Sweetwater High from 11 to 3. Also, Soil Shindig, say that fast, at Wild Willows Farm, and that's from 9:30 to 2. And then I'm really excited about on December 6th, our own IB Library is going to be hosting the Border to Bikeway event. It's a community workshop that's out there. It's really exciting. It's an 8.5-mile connection between the border, San Ysidro to Imperial Beach, and I think it's going to be great. Zeke, you should be there. We know you got some of that. So, and then also the last thing I want to talk about on December 11th, this is our public workshop for cannabis uses in Imperial Beach, and we're going to be doing this port style and interactive. Bring your ideas, see what is happening out there, and this is not about a lecture series. We are really asking for our public input to be provided to this. So it's going to be held the Monday, December 11th from 6 to 7:30. It's going to be here at the Imperial Beach in the back, and I really highly recommend you get the word out to people so people can
Highly
come.
recommend?
I highly recommend.
Okay.
Yeah. What did I say? Did I say
No, no.
Oh my! Highly recommend.
Sorry, I'm doing high school humor. So
Yeah. It was funny. So yeah, so come out December 11th, 6 to 7:30. That's all I got.
We'll move on. Sorry. The Boys Club is just like shaking her head going, oh my God.
Just to piggyback on a couple of those announcements, the cannabis open house workshop, there will be no samples provided, but munchies will be provided, so we do hope you are able to attend. And I too was at the Military Appreciation Day last Saturday, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. It was a great event, and our military individuals, veterans, and their families really appreciated the event, so thank you very much. As our representative to MTS, I was in attendance at the November 9th MTS meeting, and the staff had presented a customer appreciation survey, the results of it. And again, the South Bay has proven to be the workhorse of our system and gave MTS a 93% customer survey or customer satisfaction. So I thought that was a lot. And also the South Bay has the highest fare box recovery. So we know how to use transportation here in the South Bay, and we're willing to pay for it. I am also a representative to the LOSAN, that is the heavy rail board of directors from San Diego to San Luis Obispo. There was an article in this morning's paper. If you are planning on using Amtrak for the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, make your reservations well in advance. They will add extra train cars, and if you've never ridden on the train, when they add more cars, it's a lot of fun, but it's a monster going down the road. So get there at least 45 minutes early. Also at MTS, there will not be an accessibility. I am the chairman of the I can't even say what I'm the chairman of. It's the Accessibilities Committee meeting, and there will not be one in December. They are only held quarterly, but the next one will be in January. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thanks. I'll report on the meetings I had about water quality at the next item. And then for Sandiag, just ongoing discussions about AB 805 and moving forward on implementing that. There's no discussion about obstructing state law that the governor, the legislature signed. And then talking about new leadership at Sandiag at the board level, and that more than likely will play out with the vice chair, Terry Steno from Del Mar. He's been a good friend to Imperial Beach, and in theory would be the next chair, and then more than likely someone like Mary Salas, maybe the next chair. We'll talk about that on Friday, vice chair. And so I think there's because of AB 805, there's new discussion about you have to have segmented different regions representing the leadership. So anyway, we'll see what happens on Friday. But additionally, a discussion about just implementing sort of recommendations. I want a subcommittee that recommended organizational changes to address some of the issues that came out of not reporting correctly on financial forecasting. So again, I was part of that subcommittee, and that was received enthusiastically by the board. So hopefully they'll be moving on and implementing some changes that a consultant and auditor had made. So good to see some changes going on at Sandiag. And then finally, there had been some discussion and allegations made about expenses related to my attending the North American Mayor's Climate Summit at the invitation of Chicago Mayor Ron Emanuel. And that trip is completely paid for by the city of Chicago. So I'm gonna make sure that, and there might be a few meals, but as Andy knows, we did a trip together on pretty cheap. So anyway, and so now we'll go to Mr. Hall. Any updates from anybody?
No, Mayor, that's what I was going to let people know as well.
Great. Then we have public comment. Valerie Aceves from the Chamber of Commerce.
Hello. Ed, Mark, Lori, Kurt, Andy. Hi. I'm just up today to tell you just quickly what we've been up to. We had a fantastic time at the Military Appreciation Day. It was a lot of fun. It was fun because we were able to work with the three associations, the Veterans, Fleet Reserve, and the VFW. Those guys got it down. It was the easiest project I've ever worked on. I would work with those guys any day. We got a lot of response, a lot of people there, and I felt like it was a great program. I hope to do it again with them next year. Also, the next thing coming up is the Christmas Comes to IB, and I have flyer. Okay, thank you. I'm learning. Christmas Comes to IB is December 2nd. Right now we have 13 bikes for the 24 students. We're working on those other 13 now, and it's going to be a great day. The only thing we won't be able to do is hot dog. We can't figure that one out. So also, it's an ugly sweater contest. So if anyone has an ugly sweater and you want to be in this contest, there's a contest for adults and children. Also, I'll give those to her. The small shop over the Thanksgiving weekend. Shop at your local stores, those who are not your corporations and the huge Macy's, JCPenney. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We have Scott Nemeth.
Hi, I'm Scott Nemish. I moved here probably about 7 years ago. Got me a little place over there on Delaware. I come to you guys tonight because I want to see more overseeing on these care facilities that are popping up around town.
What kind of care do you mean?
Independent living facilities, hospice care for dementia patients, and yeah, and Yeah, I've had 3 of them pop up next to me in the 7 years I've been here. And this last one, it was an independent living facility, and dangerous people were being imported into my neighborhood. I got assaulted by a guy with a chain. There's children. I have a duplex. The people I rent to, they have grandchildren that are around. And it seems that these people are able to like set up shop, pop in for a few months, get those checks coming in from Social Security, and then they pop right out and they move somewhere else in town. I've seen them. I would like to see stiffer penalties to these people that do this. The possibility of them losing their business license to rent their properties out would be a good way to start. I've talked to the police till I'm blue in the face about this stuff, but what it comes down to is zoning and oversighting on these people. That's all I have to say, really. But I'd really like to see some more oversight on this and possible bigger fines and restrictions put on these landlords that are being very careless with their property.
Thank you, Mr. Nemish. Thanks for bringing us to our attention. This is the first I've heard of that. And Mr. Hall will follow up with you. But in the future, feel free to always contact either me or a city council member, the city manager, if one of these issues comes up. That's what we're here for. And I know that's something would interest. But we get emails and information like that all the time, and we act on it. So
okay,
appreciate
great.
it. Thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you.
Great. Now we'll move on to item 2.4. 2.4, yeah. Resolution 2017-7864 regarding a proclamation on a state of local emergency relating to impacts from cross-border pollution in the Tijuana River. I'll let Mr. Partlow come up and brief us.
Aaron Partlow, 1868 Catella Street, San Diego, California, 92154. Council members, Andy. We all know there was another event after the minimal rain event that we had last Wednesday. There was 3 to 4/10 of an inch of rainfall at IBWC, and higher up the watershed into Mexico, there was probably more. Doppler radar could be accessed, I guess, and determined exactly what that was. But we all know it's not a rainfall event that warrants a spill of 220 million gallons that I have got paperwork on from Steve Smolin. After he issued me paperwork saying that he was not going to issue a final report of the shutdown of Pump Station Scylla due to this rain event and the exceeding of its inflow capacity of 1,000 liters per second, which the flow topped out at 30 cubic meters per second and was sustained for a duration of almost 2 days. Doesn't warrant 220 million gallons coming down the water into the river and into the Pacific Ocean. And we all know that there was a Senate hearing held at the estuary on California and Mexico cooperation on these issues. I was asked by certain individuals not to bring the rage there, and I wish I had, because there was a Mexican senator from the state of Baja there, and he would have got it full force had I known that he was going to be there.
Baron, that Mexican senator is our best ally. He was actually telling us to push as hard as possible. He has been behind the scenes pushing as hard as possible. He's our best friend in Mexico, honestly. Just want to make sure you're aware of that. Not everyone in Mexico is the enemy. So.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying. It's in the opinion of a lot of people in this town that the government of Mexico really doesn't care what they do to the United States. They will disguise anything they can to dump these kind of spills on us because they save money. They don't have to deal with it. Once it's in the river, they didn't even communicate it to us. Resources are at the border on this side. IBWC Minute 283 Recommendation 16 says that Mexico is responsible for reaching out to us for resources if they can't handle it. They knew that they could set up pumping operations and diversions at the river and pump it into the system. They didn't do it. Mr. Mayor, this happened after the senator was here. You claiming he's our best friend. He's not my friend. I am in the United States of America. He is environmentally and biologically terrorizing my country, and We're not going to stand for it any longer. We're going to express our rage to that government any chance we get from here on out. And that's just the way we see it. And I'm not trying to be obstinate. I'm not trying to be disagreeable, non-compliant. I'm not in the political arena that you guys hold yourself into and being the politically correct ones. I love my freedom not to do so. I have absolutely no political aspirations. I'm striving for the same solution that we all are in this issue. Yes, and I just want to say, I have said it from this podium not too much long ago, that Mexico is going to hit us hard, hit us fast, and hit us often like they always have and have been. And this is just another example of that. So, thank you.
Great. Any other comments from discussions or updates? So just on two things on that meeting, and you know, honestly, we're pushing as hard as we can in Mexico. We are, you know, last press conference, we hammered Mexican authorities. We called for the firing of the guy running the sewage agency. The subsequent to that, the media swarmed the governor to ask about this firing. Not everyone in Mexico is trying to hurt us. Not everyone in Mexico is trying to do damage. There are people that are trying to help us. A Mexican federal senator doesn't control a state sewage agency, just like the federal government doesn't control what the Water Quality Control Board does or the county does in the Tijuana River Valley. So we've got to figure out who we need to push, and that's been really hard. But let me assure you, there are people in Mexico trying to help us, but we are pushing as hard as possible with Mexico and not happy with anyone's response, which is why we're going to move forward on filing a lawsuit against the federal government of Veolia Water. We will pursue other legal options as well. We will pursue every available option that we have. And we appreciate all the residents, including Mr. Partlow, expressing their right, their discontent, and their constitutional given freedoms to do that. So thank you. We appreciate that. Everything helps. Everything helps. So there was a meeting I presented to the policy committee, the Chamber of Commerce, which was like a who's who of the San Diego business community yesterday morning at 7:30 in the morning, and gave an overview of the issue. Asked them to contact Daryl Issa to try to allocate money in the budget to deal with this problem. Right now, there is zero money allocated on behalf of the federal government to deal with this issue. No, zero. No, not even 1 penny. And again, when I was in Washington in September, the person who controls the budget told me 3 things. He said, someone didn't fill out the forms correctly, no one cares about this, and come back in 2019. That's the person who works for it, Representative Eric Calvert, who's supposed to be allocating money to fix this. So that was the message from Washington, which is why we're filing a lawsuit. After that meeting, I was able to meet with the Consul of Mexico, the Consul of US in Tijuana, and then 2 people from the North American Development Bank and the IBWC, who I didn't discuss our legal case with, who will be replacing Steve Smullen. I think it's Carlos Pena, to talk about where we're at with Mexico. Right now, what's happening is that IBWC, the North American Development Bank, just allocated $1.75 million to help upgrade the sewer system in Tijuana, which is good. I'm not sure if there's matching funds to that. We can find out about that. Right now, what's happening is I asked them to work with, the Senate hearing here at the Tijuana Strait, Toribio Cueva, who used to work for the state agency of sewage in Tijuana, now works for the North American Development Bank, which is an agency created after NAFTA to deal with environmental problems on the border. Gave a really good presentation of what needs to be fixed. There was a plan that was carried out and was published about what it would take to fix the sewage system, which came with a price tag of $400 million. That was dollars. That was the biggest mistake that has been made. It's a blunder to come up with that kind of price tag to sort of argue that's what it would take to fix the system. The acknowledgement is it would actually take a lot less to fix the system, and that they need to focus on the things that cause beach pollution and spills in the river valley. So they're really looking at it. What causes the spills in the river valley and the river channel? A lot of it has to do with the pump station. Number 2, what causes spills along the line that goes from the border, the river, all the way to Playas de Tijuana, and the Playas de Tijuana all the way south to Rosarito, sewage pipe, and then sewage river. So anyway, that's what they're kind of trying to come up with a triage plan to figure out how much it would cost to fix those things. So they're pushing, they're our allies, and they're pushing, but we have made our discontent known a lot. we will be continuing to do things. This is not over. And I think the idea of recording the floods, Mr. Partlow, is a good idea. I think acknowledging and recording the flood flows is a really important idea. So thank you for that and making sure that we do that.
Can I add one thing real quick?
Sure, come on up. Real quick.
My Stop the Poop group is going to start a $400 million GoFundMe account. We've discussed it and we're finalizing that plan into action to do just that, fix infrastructure on both sides. I am totally dead set against a binational solution. I want the Americans to fix it here, not fund Mexico, but I will go as far as to start a $400 million GoFundMe account, and every penny will go to infrastructure improvements on both sides of the board.
You can do a lot less than 400 million. So.
I know that, sir. That's what we'll get that.
Okay.
Get it done.
All right. That's it. We'll continue moving on this. Mr. West.
Mayor, I just think it's important that we also mention that City of National City decided to join in the lawsuit, which is, that means it's a great thing. We have every city in all of the South counties has joined in at some level of commitment to our lawsuit against the International Boundary Water Commission and the federal government. So that was a great thing, and I'm proud to be a South County resident, and I'm proud that they're joining with it.
And finally, our job isn't to make people outside this city happy. Our job isn't to make elected officials outside this happy or anyone in Mexico happy. Our job is to represent you. And you have our commitment that every one of us here is absolutely fundamentally committed to doing the right thing for Imperial Beach and not worry when elected officials on this side of the border and that side of the border get really mad at us, because they are. And that's fine. I really don't care. I grew up in IB on the street, and bring it on, So it's no worse than getting a beating in the water when it's overhead. So anyway, because Mark West and Robert Stavin are there to witness all my falling off and getting launched off my board. So anyway, all right, with that, we'll move on. But finally, I want to emphasize thank you to each council member and our city staff and our residents for the unequivocal support on this. And we're going to continue moving on. Consent calendar items 2.1 to 2.7. I would like to entertain a motion to approve consent calendar items, 2.1 through 2.3 and 2.5 through 2.7. Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, you're right. So I'm sorry, let me repeat that. Entertain a motion to approve items 2.1 through 2.7.
So moved.
Okay, thanks for comment. Okay, now we have report 5.1, the biannual investment report presented. Sorry.
Motion carried unanimously by those present.
Biannual investment report presented by Chandler Asset Manager. Administrative Services Director Bradley will introduce the item and then turn the presentation over to Jenny Linkowitz, Portfolio Manager with Chandler Asset Management, to give the biannual investment report.
Actually, good evening, Mayor and Council. Just what the Mayor said. So Chandler is here to do their biannual investment report. Jenny Linkowitz.
Hey, good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, and staff. Thank you for inviting Chandler Asset Management to discuss the city's investment strategy this evening. I'd like to start out on slide number 3. We've got that up, and talk about the ground rules for investing in the state of California for operating funds for a municipality. The first thing I just want to point out is that the first objective for any municipality is going to be safety, followed by liquidity, and then yield is our objective after the first 2 criteria have been met. The city has a limited investable universe that's dictated by California law for its operating funds. One of the criteria is that the city must purchase fixed income investments, such as bonds, commercial paper, certificates of deposit, government money market funds that are rated, and LGIPs such as the LAIF fund. These are the types of investments that are permitted under code. If we purchase corporate bonds for the portfolio, the maximum maturity limit is 5 years. Stocks are not permitted investments for operating funds of the city. And if we're purchasing bonds, they must have a minimum credit rating of single A category or better by a nationally recognized statistical rating organization such as Moody's, Standard & Poor's, or Fitch. So on slide number 4, I just want to do a side-by-side comparison so you can see how the city's current investment policy compares with California code. So on the left part of the slide, we've got the City of Imperial Beach's investment policy and directives. And on the right, we have California code. And I want to point out here that there's a lot of similarities here. There's not a lot of differences between the two. So you're taking nearly full advantage of what is available to you. One thing I want to point out is corporate medium-term notes are permitted, and the criteria are exactly the same for both code and for your policy. So that means that we can buy investments out to 5 years in corporate bonds. We can invest up to 30% of the investment portfolio in those securities, and 5% per issuer. And again, they must be rated A or better. So when we're looking at a strategy for the city and how to invest the funds, there's a lot of factors we take into consideration. And one of those factors is going to be the interest rate environment. So on slide number 5, I've got a 2-year Treasury note yield history. So you can see how far we've come since we started investing the portfolio back in July of 2013. You can see the 2-year Treasury note at that point was close to zero. It was yielding 0.35% for a 2-year investment. So it was pretty ugly out there. And we've come a long way. I mean, we're now sitting at about 1.7%. And that's partly due to the improving economy. It's also due to some short-term rate hikes by the Federal Reserve that have happened and are anticipated to happen this year and next. But I do want to just point out that there's a few things keeping interest rates still fairly low. I mean, one of the things that we're seeing is that rates in Japan and across Europe are very low. They're close to zero. So a lot of international investors are flooding the market in the United States and purchasing bonds here, which is making the prices go up and the yields go down. So that's having an impact. But we could see that change. So we're definitely keeping an eye on that. Another factor we look at when formulating a strategy is we look at the types of cash flows the city has to look at. So on slide number 6, I've got a historical market value of the city's portfolio managed by Chandler. We started out with about $24 million. And as of the end of September, you can see there were some expenses that happened. So we're down to about $20 million as of the end of the quarter. And one thing I want to point out here is that there has been a pattern that in the fall, there tends to be some cash needs for anywhere from $1 to $5 million. So I think it's important that when we're investing the strategy, that we maintain a liquidity portion of the portfolio that's relatively short term, so that we're not forced to sell securities at a loss. So we have to keep part of the portfolio, I would say, within a year or less. Okay, and how is the city doing versus its peers? So we can look at it, we don't have to look very far to find some comparisons. The city of Imperial Beach's purchase yield as of the end of September was about 1.34%, which is on par with what the San Diego County portfolio is earning on theirs, and a little bit better than what the city of San Diego is earning. And just as a way of comparison, those portfolios are in excess of $1 billion. So those are very sizable portfolios. And I think the city's been keeping pace with much larger portfolios. And I think that the council and the staff can be proud of the stewardship that they've had over these assets. So just to give you an update on some of the work we've been doing with staff, we've been working to do a cash flow review just based on historical cash flows that we talked about, but also forecasting for the future. And we believe it's possible to extend the duration of the assets for a portion of the portfolio, not for all of it. As I mentioned, we have to keep some of it short to meet some cash flow needs. So for the assets that we decide to invest a little bit longer, we could earn potentially about 0.15% additional yield per million per year. So we could increase earnings on the portfolio slightly. And to illustrate this, I just want to contrast the city's current portfolio with what a longer strategy might look like. So the current portfolio I have on slide number 9, and a couple of characteristics that are listed here. The duration of the portfolio, which is a measure of volatility and interest rate risk, is about 1 3/4 years. The market yield on the portfolio right now is around 1.5%. And the maturity distribution on the right shows that the majority of the assets are invested in the 1 to 3 year time frame, which is consistent with the strategy. So the types of investments that we're buying with the funds are very high quality securities. The majority of them, about 60%, are invested in US government securities such as treasuries and agencies like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, institutions like that. About 25% of the portfolio is invested in high grade corporates. And then the remainder is invested in asset-backed securities, commercial paper, and money market. I want to point out the money market balance was a little bit higher than usual at the end of the month because we did have a cash outflow that was going to occur. So we had to keep some liquidity there. So typically we're going to keep the money market as low as we possibly can. And the credit quality is quite high. Now, if we want to contrast that with a slightly longer strategy that we can consider adopting, we've got the Chandler short-term bond strategy that we could consider. And the duration of this type of strategy would be a little bit longer. We'd be looking at going out from 1 3/4 years to a little bit more than 2 years. The yield would be also a little bit potentially higher. 1.68% as of September 30th was the yield there, and it was about 15 basis points higher than the market yield on the shorter strategy. The biggest difference in these two strategies is in the maturity distribution. So if you look at the bar chart on the upper right-hand side, you could see that it would entail investing some of the assets out more in the 3 to 5 year maturity bucket. So there would be a little bit higher yields. You'd also have a little bit higher volatility with those securities, but the idea would be to be able to buy and hold them if necessary till maturity. And as far as sector allocation and credit quality, those metrics would be very similar across both strategies. So there would not be a major change there. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have at this time.
Mr. Trigg.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you very much for the report. I've been sort of I don't know whether I'm a hawk or a dove regarding our portfolio performance being below the inflation rate and therefore essentially losing value every year when inflation is around 2% and we're at 1.34 or whatever it might be. And so I guess my first question, and I appreciate your providing the comparisons with San Diego, the city of San Diego and the county of San Diego. But I guess my first question is, are there other jurisdictions in California that are yielding at least at the inflation rate due to their portfolio mix, still within the requirements of California law, but perhaps a different mix than the one that the 3 cities or 3 jurisdictions you mentioned have adopted?
Okay, well, thank you for that. I do want to point out there's different ways to measure inflation. I mean, if we look at the Fed's preferred metric, the core PCE, which is on slide 15, that's yielding about 1.3%. So by that standard, you currently happen to be out yielding inflation a little bit. But having said that, I mean, I do want to reiterate, we're in a very low interest rate environment. There's a lot of external factors that we're facing. And I believe that your rate that you're earning is very competitive. I'm not aware of the yield of every, municipality in California, but I could certainly research that and see, and get back to you if I can find anything higher.
Well, that's kind of what I had asked for when we had the last discussion, I guess about 6 months ago, was were there some jurisdictions that are managing to adopt maybe a slightly higher risk, but still within the permissible range, either in terms of maturity, which you mentioned, or in terms of how they balance between AAA, AA, and single A quality bond and other investment, because that's another dimension of this. And the comparison that you made just a minute ago, and the chart is still up, the slide before that actually had where your proposal is going is a lot more, 75% in AAA rating compared to the 8.6 I think that we are at right now, at least from the prior slide.
I can explain the difference in the ratings.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is that the higher the rating, I would imagine the less risky the investment is, and possibly the lower yield that investment brings with it. And so there is both maturity and credit quality variables in how we manage the portfolio. Now, don't get me wrong, anybody. I'm not saying you guys have done a bad job, and please don't take what I'm saying the wrong way. I'm not trying to articulate that Chandler in some way is not doing the best job possible for Imperial Bead. I understand that you're trying to maximize safety above and beyond everything, and that's a requirement. What I'm suggesting is that when you maximize safety and are losing real value on the portfolio, that's not necessarily, those aren't necessarily consistent. Let's say, for example, to maximize safety, you are only earning 0.5% on the portfolio, okay, as opposed to 1.34 or something like that. Then there'd probably be a lot of people saying, hey, what can you do to make adjustments to this? All I'm saying is that even at 1.34, I'm saying the same thing. What can we do to make adjustments so that we are retaining at least real value of the people's tax dollars in our portfolio? And so I've suggested there are different dimensions of that. And I see that when you go to AAA for 75%, I'm not sure whether that's going to produce the kind of return that's going to help us keep above inflation when those are actually much more credit-worthy investments and possibly at a lower yield.
I do want to address that point that you've made, because the slide that on slide number 9, where we're looking at Imperial Beach's portfolio, that is only looking at S&P ratings, and S&P has the U.S. government rated AA+. So that is why it looks like there's more AA rated securities versus AAA rated securities, whereas the short-term bond strategy, which is a composite, is looking at all three: Moody's, S&P, and Fitch. So it's placing the government securities in the AAA rated bucket. These are actually very similar rating profiles. There's not a big difference between the two strategies. And your policy, as it's written currently, takes full advantage of the corporate credit options that are available to you. So there's credit policy wise, there's, you have exactly what state code says. There's nothing that I could do to it that would make it more permissive within the law of California as far as corporate bonds go.
Last question. Our government agency funds that are guaranteed by the federal government and that are generally safe, some of them you're in already. Others, like Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae, we're not in. Maybe there's some legal reason why we're not. But I ask you the question, I'm asking the question regarding the federal agencies that generate higher rates of return, whether those are an avenue over and above corporate bonds for the portfolio.
Agencies are, with the exception of Ginnie Mae, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Federal Farm Credit Bank, and Federal Home Loan Bank, are not explicitly guaranteed by the federal government. However, they are considered by the market to have a quasi governmental guarantee. It's not explicitly guaranteed. So they're considered very high quality investments. So they're going to tend to trade at a higher valuation than a corporate bond. So you're going to get paid more than Treasury usually, but less than a corporate bond. So you're invested in Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Federal Farm Credit, and Federal Home Loan Bank. So those four is typically what we're going to be investing in for your portfolio.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
West, you're done. Okay.
One of the things that we do need to point out is that some of our higher yielding returns, we have given you instruction to not invest in any fossil fuel companies and some of those things. And those are some of our higher rated returns. We should point out that we have placed some limitations on where you invest in our behalf. And just want to make sure that the public's aware of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess that was my comment. I was delighted to see that. I think it's on page 26 of your report. We have a list of companies or groups that we invest in. Page 134 on the agenda. It looks like there's no fossil fuel companies there that you guys just.
That's correct.
Great,
there are
thank
none.
you. Okay.
Thank you.
With that, no further discussion. I would like to entertain a motion to accept the biannual investment report.
Second.
Please vote.
Thank you.
Councilmember West, please vote.
Thank you so much for coming.
All right. Thank you so much.
Motion carried unanimously by those present.
We have item 5.2, audited financial statements and related documents. Administrative Services Director will give the report.
Yeah, good evening again, Mayor and Council. So tonight we're going to go over the fiscal year 17 audit, which was completed just recently and went very smoothly. It seems like every year we're getting the audits completed in a more rapid pace. We're actually one of the first agencies that our auditors visit, and puts a little pressure on our staff, but things go quite well. So pretty pleased with that. So all I'm asking here is to receive the reports. That's all we're doing tonight, and discussion if necessary. But as a summary, the general fund revenue exceeded the budget, which is nice, by about $200,000. And that was the revenue side. On the expense side, we were actually under budget about $294,000. So the good on both of those. The sewer fund revenue and expense were on budget, which is nice to meet the rate model that we have put in place. And there were no audit findings. Let me just real quickly go over the revenue. Again, this is basically the budget versus actual, and the budget's on the bottom, the actual's on the top. And let me just go through a couple highlights. The general fund, again, as I mentioned, we exceeded the budget by about $200,000, and that was primarily due to our property tax and vehicle license tax. Down here, if I look at my risk fund, you can see we actually exceeded the budget by quite a large amount. That is solely due to the final Sandpiper, which was our former risk pool, insurance risk pool, shut down. So we transferred all the liabilities and claims to CSAC, and then we liquidated all the excess funds to the agencies. So we won't see that kind of variance again. On the sewer fund, our revenue matched our budget. It was a little bit of a flip. We had a little extra in capacity fees, and we were a little bit under on our usage fees. We continue to see this water conservation affecting our revenue to the sewer fund because we have a usage type fee or rate applied to our those bills. If I move to the expense side of the equation, again, I'm just going to point out a couple highlights here. But again, the general fund, we were under budget by about $290,000, which sounds like a lot, but it's really only about 1.4% of the budget. So we were pretty much right on. Nothing other major here on the expense side. You might see the vehicle. It might appear as if the vehicle fund or the technology fund was overspent, but it's not the case at all. We just don't budget for depreciation, and depreciation is a non-cash expense, and it does roll through, so it appears as if we were over budget, which in fact we weren't. And then the sewer fund, this is more of just an accounting thing. We were actually on budget, but because of the way we record our capital assets, the budget stayed in, the expense or capital didn't. So we're really just on budget there. And then my last slide is our fund balance, because that's really what it's all about at the end of the day. On the left side is our general fund, and I just want to point out our unassigned fund balance, again, has remained about 43% of our expenditures for the year, which is quite healthy. It did go up slightly. If you add into that our economic uncertainty fund, which is about 1.8 million, we have over half a year worth of reserves in those two funds, which is really nice. I'll point out on our strategic capital reserve, you might see that declining. Why did it decline? We made that purchase on 495 Palm, purchased over $1 million, and we had the LCP plan and some community enhancement expenses, but primarily that purchase. On our public works reserve, it did decline slightly, and that was again through capital expenditures that we made throughout the year and committed. And then lastly, if you look from the general fund, if you look at our public safety communication reserve, it seems like so long ago we purchased that RCS system, but it was in fiscal year 17. Just wanted to point out again that we transferred the balance that was left over after that purchase, the $275,000, to the park maintenance fund, which you see right here. So you see that increase in the park maintenance. And that's going to go a long way towards some of these projects we have targeted in the parks, particularly the parks restrooms. So that'll get discussed in a little bit. In terms of fund balance, I also wanted to point out the housing fund balance, $734,000 at the end of the fiscal year. That also too is going to be an important discussion item with that property we just purchased and a possible affordable housing project. There are some funds there that I believe need to be, that will be included in that discussion. And then lastly, the 2010 bond funds at the very bottom there. That's actually, those are about all spent as of today. The last project is the 8 Alley project. So those will be exhausted by the end of this current fiscal year. So that's all I have for you. And open to any questions you have.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bradley. I was wondering if the auditors are here.
They are not. They are not. I can have them come at another time if you would like. They typically don't visit on these presentations, but they can come. They said that they would come upon request.
Okay, I did have some questions for them, and I guess I'll just ask you instead. Did our auditors have full access to any and all financial documents that were necessary for them to complete their task?
Absolutely.
Okay. Was city staff members in the financial department available for them at all times throughout the course of the audit?
Yes.
Thank you. Did they find our records to be complete and in compliance of standard finance accounting?
Yes.
Okay, and they did not find any material weaknesses?
No, they did not. I will point out that in the audit or in the staff report, there's an audit communication letter from the auditors to the mayor and council, which address all those questions.
Oh, I think I saw that. Thank you.
Well, once again, thank you, Mr. Bradley, for a very clear format for the budget presentation and the funds situation. And congrats on the clean audit. That's really good news for Imperial Beach. I just had a couple questions. One is, and I don't know that this is a question rather than a comment to the colleague. I hope we can find a way to replenish the strategic capital fund, because that is where we have the capacity to make investments that are going to produce positive results going forward for the community, such as the property purchase, which is going to help us with our storm drain runoff, save us money there, and possibly lead to a housing project that will be beneficial for the community as well.
Can I just point out that there is an asset you purchased, so
Right.
that $1 million property is in the inventory.
So from a balance sheet standpoint, there's really no loss except that it's not liquid. Going back to the last discussion. The internal control report, this is the last thing I wanted to mention. That had a fairly limited scope going into the audit. The review of internal controls. At least that's what I'm gleaning from reading that attachment 3. Yet looking at internal controls is a very valuable thing in terms of whether staff are trained, whether entries are being made timely, whether they're categorized in the right way, and that sort of thing. And they noted they didn't see anything from a fairly superficial internal control review standpoint. So I guess my question to you is, considering that in the past, before your time, we did have internal control issues that resulted in audit findings, what's your view as far as whether the next audit, maybe this one was adequate, maybe the next one ought to look more closely at internal controls? I don't know. What's your thought about that, considering how important the area is?
I beg to differ. I don't know how many audits you sat through, and I lose a lot of sleep during that time frame. And there's nothing superficial about what they do when they come here. I will say that the audit is much smoother now. Those internal controls have been resolved because of my staff and myself. And so we put into place procedures and protocols in the finance department and throughout the city. It now has eliminated some of their angst as when they would come out. I'll tell you, those auditors almost got to a point where they didn't want to come to this city. So we've cleaned that up, and it may appear like it's superficial, but it's a thorough audit, believe me.
Mr. Bradley, when I decided to run for council, one of the reasons why is because I heard a lot about issues that were happening in our city, and I am so impressed by what happened. I'm reading through this, and it reads better than any audit I ever saw in the Navy or anything that I've ever seen before. So you should be extremely proud of you and your staff that has done this. And I am. We have turned the corner to a new level in our city. If they're picking us to go first, there's a reason why. So I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to put some perspective on this for the public and people watching and the audience. This is the most important thing we do. ensure the public trust and transparency. This is what doesn't happen at the sewage agency in Mexico. All right, this is a full accounting of the people's money, right? The revenues that we collect, the sewer fund. And then, Mr. Spriggs brought up a great point in that this city and the city council. So first of all, thank you for having an impeccable audit. It is important. That's important to make sure that we have the appropriate information to make decisions, so we don't have to make decisions that might not really reflect the true state of the city's finances. So it's important, and more importantly, so that the public, residents of the city, understand that their money is being spent wisely and managed wisely. The second thing is that it really pleases me, and I'm really pleased that the sort of idea of the city and the philosophy and practice is to reinvest our monies back in the city. And we understand the role of government is to make things better and improve the quality of life and improve and invest in infrastructure. That isn't the case out there. There are agencies in this county that stockpile money and dole it out when there's a crisis and pretend that nothing's happening. So I won't say what they are, but I'm really proud of the fact that this council and this city staff and our residents support reinvesting money back in the city. Like when you have a family, every bit of money you invest in your kids and you put back in your house and your career and your education and whatever it is, that pays off, right? It's not easy to do, but you have to do it. So really pleased with the improvements that have been made, but more importantly, again, this is the single most important thing we do right now, is getting this done and making sure it's a clean bill of health. So thank you very much, Bradley and Mr. Hall, for the oversight and making sure that's happened. So anyway, with that, I entertain a motion to receive and file the FY17 financial statements.
So moved.
Related documents and provide. Okay. Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously by those present.
Okay, now we have received presentation from recreation providers on current programs and consider adoption of resolution number 2017-7863, appropriating $49,301 to the Boys and Girls Club of South County for providing recreational services on behalf of the city of Imperial Beach. Mr. Hall will give the report. And then we'll have presentations from Tim Collins, President, Imperial Beach Little League, Newt Copeland, President, Imperial Beach Girls Softball League, and Aaron Ruiz, Unit Director, Boys and Girls Club of South County. We appreciate you guys being here as well.
Mayor and Council, we have an agreement with the Boys and Girls Club and a separate agreement with the leagues making up the Little League and the Girls Softball to provide recreation programs for our community at the sports park. And as part of those agreements, they are required to come and provide an update to you on an annual basis about what's happening in our recreation programs. The resolution that you have in front of you tonight is to close a shortfall of funding for the Boys and Girls Club, who have spent more money providing the recreation programs than the recreation programs were able to generate. So we just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to see some of the things that are happening in our recreation programs, and to let you know that we are working right now on updating the agreements that we have with the Boys and Girls Club as well as the leagues to better reflect where we think we're going in the future. Probably the biggest change in the future is that the city will be assuming the maintenance responsibilities for the recreation center as well as the landscaping that surrounds the recreation center. I think more than anything, because I think we're better geared to do that. We want to make sure that we're protecting that investment. So with that, I just wanted to turn some time over to, I guess, is it Tim that's going first? To talk a little bit about, yeah, I think they're relatively quick, but it does give an update on what's happening in their program. Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. I'm Tim with Imperial Beach Little League. The new president took over for Don this year, so we kicked him out. He had enough time. But nothing's really going to change as far as he's my mentor, so he laid the groundwork for me. So we keep going forward. We have our traditional, divisions. Our little divisions like the wiffle ball and the challenger divisions keep growing. And I hope with the housing off Saturn, I personally just walked all those houses and handed them flyers saying, "We are your little league," just so they know where to go. And hopefully we get another 50, I'm hoping like 50 kids or something, which will boost our numbers well over 400. So we're moving, we're doing good. Just trying to get the word out there. You've probably seen our banners out there. We're going to try to get the kids signed up for next year. So, you know, again, we don't function with too much, but volunteers is how we make things happen down there. And last time you guys went down there, but we just recently replaced a bunch of fencing again.
What's Don doing?
He's supervising.
Oh, okay.
We tried to tell him not to get out of the carts ever, because if we're there for 4 hours, it's 2 hours too many with him because he drags okay. With our volunteers, we have great volunteers. So there's it's not on the slide, but I do want to let you guys aware that we have a huge project that we're actually starting here next week. We are tearing out the infield, as it looks like up in this slide, and we are paying for the kids to put a synthetic grass infield in for the kids. And that project will start next week. Fall ball ends on Friday, or Sunday. The infield gets torn out. The process gets started, and we move on and move forward. We felt like they needed a safer field to play on. The rabbits were killing our grass. I know we can't do anything with the rabbits. I asked, trust me. So we have that going forward. We actually put up security cameras, just so you guys know too. Now the park is fully under security cameras that we went ahead and budgeted for because of break-ins and just kind of situations that kids like to do down there. So those are in place now and working. And we're also going to re-roof the 2 dugouts too in the next few weeks on that major field. Thanks to the city for helping us with the material. But again, that's going to be full volunteer hours for all of us that are helping with that, and no outside sources, but just straight manpower and woman power to have those projects completed. That's all I really have. Just these pictures are just from the past season. We have a real good group of kids. And my goal is, and I think I've told Annie and Ed this, Imperial Beach Little League may never go to Williamsport. I don't know that we have the base, but it's my passion, as long as I'm here, is to give them a World Series kind of atmosphere, a field to play on, a field to come and say, hey, I played on that field, and to be proud of that field and just keep up what Don did for all these years. So really that's my main goal. And that was part of what this whole infield thing is. And just every year, just reinvesting our money back into those fields. So the people of the city can be proud, and then the kids can always be proud to play on, and always come back and say, hey, I got to play on that field. That's awesome. So I thank you guys. Any questions?
You might not make it to the World Series of Little League, but you made it to the World Series of council presentations. That might have been one of the best ones ever.
Oh,
so
thank you.
You nailed it.
Home
run. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll let the presenters present, and then we can have questions at the end when we're done with the presentation. Next.
Good evening. My name is Newt Copeland. I'm president of IB Girls Softball. I'd like to introduce a couple of our board members that are here. I have Mercedes Smith, he's our event coordinator. I have Chuck Thurman, he's my vice president, and Juan Rodriguez, he's our treasurer / webmaster. We started off the season with 6 board members. Now we're up to 11. Through the year, we've had a lot of help: managers, coaches, team moms, volunteers working on the field, cleaning, shopping, repairing equipment, and just throwing in to help where we need it. Teams and players. Spring season, we had 3 T-ball teams, 1 8U, 2 10U, 1 12U, and 1 14U. And most of these teams had 14 to 16 players because we didn't want to turn anybody away. And we play interleague. So once the schedule comes out, we can't go change the schedule. So like I said, we didn't want to turn anybody away. So in the spring, a lot of these teams were running with like 14 or 16 players, which is hard for the managers to do, but we just didn't want to turn away anybody. We had 2 all-star teams, our 10U and our 12U. The all-star teams did very well in tournament play and in district. And softball is a little bit different than baseball. When baseball chooses their all-stars, they go straight to war. the tournament. In softball, you pick your all-star team and then you go play a couple of tournaments. They're basically fundraisers for the league. And then we play like 4 tournaments and then we go into district and go to war. In those tournaments, we did pretty good. The 10U did well and the 12U did very well. And in district, we would do good in the beginning of the tournament, but then we would kind of like run out of gas, or the bottom would fall out on us, and we would continue on. But when you go into a tournament, Saturday is to find out who's the big dog and who's not. And usually we came out as the big dog, but then when we would go into Sunday, like I said, the bottom would fall out on us and we would advance. But we were doing good, and people were noticing IB, Imperial Beach teams, that they were doing a lot better than before. Fall season, we had 2 T-ball teams, 1 8U, 3 10U, 1 12, 1 14, and 1 16. The league is growing, and that's because of a lot of the new board members and coaches that we have right now. During the fall season, we had a lot of interest coming back to us for signups in the 2018 season. We had a few of Twin Hills people coming to us and wanting to come to us. And we have a lot of people that are actually living in IB and playing in Bonita Valley. They're talking about coming back because they're tired of I call it a cattle herd, but they're tired of the cattle herd in Bonita and want to come back to the little, I guess, home style softball field that we have, that we're developing. Saturday is our closing day. We are barbecuing and showing a movie. Say thank you to all the parents and the players. It's all free. The barbecue will start at 5:30, so if you want to have a hamburger and a movie, stop by. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much for your presentation and all the work that you do. We really appreciate it. All the board members that are here, we appreciate it. Mr. Ruiz. And by the way, I love the presentation. Bureaucrats should take note of these great presentations. So anyway.
No pressure. How do I follow that? My name is Aaron Ruiz. I'm the Imperial Beach Club Director for the Boys and Girls Clubs of South County. And first, I'd want to say that thank you for allowing us to partner with you guys, and we're able to manage the recreation center. And for that, we're able to serve more and more kids and more families, which is the Boys and Girls Club mission, and we're glad we're able to share that with you guys. Just a brief overview about Boys and Girls Club. We served over 4,500 youth in 2016. We've had more than 50 years of service in the South Bay, 52 years here in Imperial Beach. We're rated one of the top 100 clubs, Boys and Girls Clubs in the nation. And to put that into perspective, there's over 4,000 Boys and Girls Clubs in the nation. And so to be a part of the top 100, that is something that we're extremely proud of. And then we also received the 2014 Gateway Impact Award. What that means is that we showed the most promise. We showed the most average daily attendance. We were the best club in the Pacific in showing the increase in average daily attendance. So that's a testament to our staff and for the families that come every single day. So what's going on at the Recreation Center? Some of the classes that we host there are yoga, Zumba. We have some hip hop classes. Martial arts, as you can see, is one of our highest attended. But the longest lasting class has to be the Tai Chi class held by the seniors every Tuesdays and Thursdays. That class can exceed over 40 individuals in our gym. It's been the longest standing. It's been the best to see. And that also puts it into perspective that we're not only serving the kids, but the families and the seniors and everybody else in the community. In total, we have about 13 classes that we host. Some of them we do have to host over at the Boys and Girls Club, but this is just a few that we host there. What else is going on? Community events. So we love to take part in what goes on in the community, and City of IB keeps us very, very busy. We just recently went to Military Appreciation Day, which we got a chance to host the Kids Zone, which was an amazing day and the best day on the beat. We just participated in the murals project with the Four Walls and the Imperial Beach Arts Bureau. And at the Public Works Yard, if you haven't had a chance to check that out, the kids call it more like a Alice in Wonderland feel, but it looks amazing, and that's something that our kids participated in. It looks amazing. We also got a chance to be a part of the Breakwater Town Center grand opening, specifically at the grocery outlet, greeting all the first customers, and we had some of our teens and volunteers bag the first 100 guests. So that was a great day for them. Global Wellness Day that's being hosted every single year here over at Dunes Park, and then we most recently headed the way with the Easter egg hunt, and that is the best 2 minutes of your life if you get a chance to see that. Adult athletics, so we're also able to host athletics, and specifically for adults. Best league we have is probably the co-ed softball league. It's sold out, so if you try to join our league, there isn't any room right now. And what the best part about our co-ed softball leagues is that's local businesses that participate. Coronado Brewery, all the different businesses put a team together, and they're out there playing on Tuesdays. We haven't seen the city staff lately. I think it's due to injury. Was that the excuse? But we'd love to have you guys. Men's basketball is not sold out, but it is something that we host over at the Boys and Girls Club. The talent in that room is amazing. We have some ex-NFL players that are playing in that league, and so that's the kind of talent there. And pickleball. Pickleball is not something that is really a league for us, but it is something that's ongoing. And right now there's a group that stays here for the winter, and so every Friday and Saturday, if you want to play pickleball, come down to the sports park. It's packed. So what's coming up for the rec center is we're speaking closely with the Parks and Rec Commission here, and we're looking at expanding our program. And how we can do that is probably our best asset, and that's the beach. And so what we're looking at doing is hosting beach volleyball, not only for instruction, but possibly tournaments and leagues from the little kids all the way up to adults. Brazilian beach soccer, and that's something that the Brazilians use on their off season for ball handling, and so they encourage that for young kids. It's a great workout for an adult, but it's great for the ball handling for the kiddos, and definitely surfing. So those are the activities that we're looking to branch out on the beach, and we've had a meeting with Mr. Stabenow and the lifeguards just to see what that would look like. But we're going to the commission on Monday to finalize how we can expand our programming to the beach. We also included a free lunch program, so any child that comes over to Sports Park gets a free lunch, and that's important because it's a long day for the kids, and some of them don't go home until past 6, and so they'll eat their breakfast, lunch, and then maybe we can give them their supper as well. And if they're fed, we seem to see a lot less behavior issues. So that's a great asset that we've added. And then we're looking into Muay Thai, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu so that we can, that seems to be very popular in our town. So that's something that we're looking at venturing off into 2018. And that's what's going on over at Sports Park.
Great presentations. You guys think I'm bad now? If it wasn't for the recreation centers, San Diego Boys and Girls Club, which I think was the first boys and girls club ever up in Solana Beach, Amateur Athletic Union, Little League Baseball, Pony League Baseball, Colt League Baseball, intramural sports, all the way through high school. I was a multi-medalist in AAU wrestling, spent many hours and days at the Tech Lodi, Pacific Beach, South Claremont Recreation Centers. And when the clock is expired and the score on the board is not always in our favor, what we learn from the people that promote the healthy atmosphere and the necessary diversion in today's society that recreation is for everybody involved. It teaches commitment. It teaches responsibility. How to share. You share the ball, getting to the same goal. how to bend to the breaking point without breaking because you know somebody's behind you and you don't ever have to look back for help. These are lessons that we take with us all through our lives. It's my experienced opinion that recreation is most necessary and is a very building block element of the character of those involved the rest of their life, those that are charged with instructing the kids and supervising. Free lunch? Who doesn't like free lunch? That's awesome. Thank you very much.
I don't have any council members due to speak. Was there more information you would present us on other options during that, or?
No, but we can review what the council's being asked to do tonight.
Yeah, let's make sure.
I suppose I would share that same sentiment with you that recreation is not a luxury in our, not a luxury in the community. It's a necessity. We need to make sure we have a good, solid recreation program. If it weren't for the Little League, I'd be still sitting on a dumb horse moving dumb cows around dumb pastures. So I'm kind of glad for sports as well. But we really appreciate all the work that they put in. All of our programs here are primarily volunteer with a little bit of paid labor, but most of it is volunteer, and it's really impressive what they do in our community. But what the city council is being asked tonight was first to receive the report that you've received, and then to authorize adoption of the resolution that would then close the funding gap for the Boys and Girls Club so that they don't lose money providing recreation programs to our residents here in Imperial Beach.
Thank you. First of all, to all of you, thank you so much. And when I was younger, I played girls softball, and we went to finals, I guess. I was the catcher. I have a great arm. Don't mess with me. But I learned it on the softball field. I learned it on the softball fields in my hometown. So what Mr. Partlow said and what you provide for our community is priceless, absolutely priceless. That you are before us asking us to fund the shortfall, that happened. I did have some questions for Little League though, about the synthetic grass, the lifespan of it, what the cost is of it, the cost of the security cameras.
So we looked into, obviously, I did my due diligence. I had plenty of companies come out. So the security system, all in told, probably $1,200. It's fully wireless. So that's really our expense was. We didn't want to run wires through the park if we didn't have to. So we went with an Arlo. It's a fully wireless rechargeable battery system. Keeps anything 7 days in the cloud or whatever. And we have them around the whole field. We could look into, the only challenge with that right now is getting Wi-Fi. We have Wi-Fi, but the range of it's working right now. It'd be nice to have a couple more cameras, but I'm not sure if the Wi-Fi will pick it up that far. As far as the synthetic turf, I'm told 25 years is the lifespan. It's a new product, so we're not going old school. If you guys saw like the rubber stuff, there's no rubber in this stuff. Antimicrobial stuff that's in there where no insects, nothing can start becoming life, I guess, per se. The cost of that is going to be close to $18,000. The reason we're doing it is there's multiple reasons. First and foremost, this is safety for the kids. As the field stands right now, the major field, it is to the point where it is very unsafe, in my opinion. And the Rabbits just moved that opinion along quicker this summer, unfortunately. So we were going to have to do something. Now, I will tell you, when I did a synthetic turf, I also asked Diamond Designs, which do real grass. Their bid came in at $21,000. And there's no guarantee once you start mowing, the wind picks up, you get the clippings that'll go into the new infield, and that whatever crabgrass will take over. And then again, we're going to have the rabbit issue probably. If the sprinklers don't hit every area of that infield, they like the dry grass and they tear it. They've torn it apart. It's amazing the damage they've done. And it's not superficial. It is literally 4 inches deep of what they've rooted out. The people I had down there said, "You sure this is rabbits or it's not something else animal?" Because they were very surprised how damaged it was. So the thought was safety, and the longevity. And on the back end of that, since we are fully 100% volunteer, it's one less thing I have to do as far as mowing an infield. And we still have another infield we'd like to get done, but at this point, we're starting that one. We can cut off the water now. It's just less maintenance. We don't have to mow it. We don't have to worry about it. It might even last longer than that because we're not talking like a football or soccer where it's going to be, this is just the infield. So the real dirt staying in the outfield, real grass staying. So as far as what the kids do, they won't be cutting, and the foot traffic on the infield is not going to be as great as you would see in a soccer or football field. So it could last longer if long as it's going to be maintained. As long as I'm going to be there, it will be maintained. And I still have quite a few years there. So 25, I'm hoping I'm not going to be there 25 years. But I do have a 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 7-year-old. So I'll be there. So that was the thought behind it. Now our board approved it. In the comparisons of the two different bids of real grass and fake grass, we just thought the benefits of the synthetic outweighed the real grass, even
All right.
that. So.
Thank you for that, and I view them, I'm sure, as the same way you did. These are long-term investments, especially the security cameras, because the cost of replacing all of that equipment periodically is quite high.
Yes.
One of the things that you said in your presentation just really struck a chord with me, and it was that you were really instilling pride in the youth, the pride of being part of this recreation program in the city of Imperial Beach. And my grandson played Little League almost from kindergarten till they moved to Carlsbad.
Right.
And he looked back on those years with such fondness, and his dad was a coach, and I was down there all the time, but it really is part of the fabric of the community.
It is.
So thank you for your
I
commitment
appreciate
to that.
it.
I
It
appreciate
is.
it.
And that's, like I said, that is the goal that I was taught from when I was a kid, but more from when I took over as a board member, how to see it. It's not always, yes, winning's great. It's not, we're not always going to win, like you said, but heck, man, if I can give them a beautiful place to play. I mean, I can always remember walking to Qualcomm, and I just love looking at the field. I mean, obviously we're never going to have that call, but just that sense of pride and going, wow, I get to play on this. And that's what I want the kids to come down there. And you guys too, going, hey, look at this place they get to play. This is awesome.
Exactly.
We get to call this our Little League. And we've been there since 1956. So, and it's only getting better. And like I said, our goal as a board is always to reinvest our money that we fundraise or make through that snack bar that goes right back into those facilities for the kids. It's nothing else but for the kids. And so that's what we're here for.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Copeland, for the girls softball, I did want to really commend you on doubling the size of your board as well, because with just having 6 people, that makes it difficult. So my hat's off to you. That was not an easy task to fulfill, but it shows commitment again from this community to expand that program and just really carry it forward. So thank you for that. And then now to Aaron Ruiz from Boys and Girls Club in Ken. Thank you so much for being here. I really wanted to comment on the beach recreation aspect that you're proposing for 2018. That's a natural. That beach is just a natural asset. And when you think about it, there's not any building maintenance that we have to, there's some other things, but I think that the ideas that you have there could really change our recreation program. So I'm really appreciative of the forward thinking there. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Thanks for what you do.
Mr. West, thank you. Mr. West.
Yeah, as a kid who grew up playing all these sports, and I coached when I was in high school, coached girls softball. I mean, I love all these things because it is a really big community thing that we bring to it, and I am excited. I will say that I think I commend you guys for trying to look at synthetic grass obviously with the amount of water that it's not there anymore. So that was the right decision in many ways. I would say that there is a safety aspect to it though that I would watch. The balls come off there a lot different than they do come off grass, if you know what I mean. I played in a high school stadium that had that, and it was it can pick up some speed that's different that the kids won't be used to. But have you thought about if you're going to make that obviously it's our major sports. I mean, if you're going to go to the length to put synthetic grass, this could be a tournament place to hold future tournaments for. That's kind of a big deal, and especially in South County, I mean, it might be something to look at.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you guys every year that we host All-Stars for our district, and mind you, our district is the East Lakes and the Parkview. So if you guys watch the World Series, our kids are actually playing against those kids in All-Star time. It's kind of crazy to think about, but we are part of that.
Sure.
To answer your question about the synthetic, they have the way I was explained, there's certain grass that is picked for certain sports.
Mm-hmm.
I picked a stiffer, kind of softer, to absorb. And the way I was told, the depth that we're going, as far as the base that's being put down, we're going down 8 inches. So the compaction's where where that's gonna be. Now, where that's important is also drainage.
Yep.
And also, when I tell you, if you look at the field now, it's kind of off kilter. We were not gonna have that problem ever again. The other fields, again, I would say the reason those are probably bouncy is because they get played on a ton.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and the climate of where it's at, if it's really hot, it will be, unfortunately, we're pretty mild down here. So it'll be an adjustment, but I can't tell you it won't be any different than them having to dodge rabbit holes.
No doubt.
And anything else. You know what I mean? So there isn't, and it wasn't my decision. As I say, everything that gets approved down there is through our board. And
I'm just saying, be cognizant. That's all.
Yeah, and I understand. It's just we're looking for the safety of the kids and the longevity of where everything's going, and being able to get rid of some watering and stuff, and mowing and gas and
I totally understand.
Maintenance on mowers and stuff. It's kind of and leading to tournaments, it could lead to something.
Yeah,
but little at a time, and not trying to get too big for my britches.
Understand. Don, thank you for all you've done for our community. And I know you'll still be involved, obviously holding pipes behind while they're actually doing work, but you are a great person for our community, and thank you so much for all you've done. And you're just part of the community in many ways. So thank you, sir.
Can I add to that? Since he quote unquote retired, I won't let him retire. Just so you guys know, and Ed didn't pick out the picture, so that's his fault. We actually gave have a few friends within the Padres. We're able to give Don a ceremony first pitch for a thanks. So he was on the board, the big, imagine that thing on the big. So we're able to do that and recognize him. So just so you guys know, he's been part of this community, and he's done so much for this community. And as a Little League, we were able to do a few things for him. So I just want to let you guys aware of it.
Beautiful. Mr. Copeland, thank you so much. The Girls Softball League, too. I mean, I'm very excited. I echo Mayor Pro Tem's that growing a board is great. Mr. Ruiz, I am excited about all that you guys are doing over there. I love that the renovation that you're actually going to be doing to the Boys and Girls Club as well. I think that's going to be a big thing for next year. Now onto the other side. Where I grew up in Colorado, and many of those states in the mountain states, community centers are the recreational services for the entire city. 24-hour fitness, those places aren't really around in Boulder, Colorado, because the community services are everything to that community, and they are packed from 5 o'clock in the morning till midnight, and it's an amazing thing. They are completely self-sufficient at those places. They through their memberships and their programs, they really don't need outside assistance. I am completely supportive of you guys and completely supportive of what we're talking about tonight. But I'm very happy that you're looking outside the box to try to figure out different ways to generate some revenue there, because I think there have been some things that we've had some hiccups this year, and I think you know what I'm talking about for different classes that were taken that were not that weren't always, how do I put this in a way? There was just some challenges between instructors and all kinds of different things there that were little things that all of us heard about through the community. So I support what you guys are doing, and I really want to continue to do it, but I would like to see you trying to figure out ways to raise revenue at that. And that's, I think renovating the place is probably going to help a little bit, but doing some other things, the beach volleyball. No reason why this can't be the South County Beach Volleyball League, like South Mission Jetty does at Mission and Mission Beach, and all those different things. So I was very happy to see that, and obviously surfing is a natural point, but continue to think outside the box so we can figure out ways we have a revenue generation as well.
Great, thanks. First, I want to just thank Tim, Newton, Aaron, the presentations, great presentations, and then really, acknowledge the concept here that's really important about IB and the reason why you've been so successful. And I saw it with Little League and softball, and that's because we're a leader-full community. You're leader-full organizations, and you have the folks that have been involved with that are involved in building leadership, and that's what you're all doing. Right? And the kids see it, and they come up and become board members. They come involved, and so it's a really important concept. And then obviously Ken's here. Ken, and that's been the same thing for the Boys and Girls Club. You could have spoken, but you had Aaron speak, right? Because you're passing on that legacy of leadership. And I didn't attend his memorial service on Friday, but Mark Nagels was a product of that. He was a senior, I think, when I was a freshman or a sophomore. He always had a Letterman jacket on, and I could always count on Mark. Over the last 20 years, every time I saw him, we'd have a really important conversation about something. He'd always bring me into something. He'd ask me a question before I was mayor, right? Like, we'd always have a really interesting conversation. I always left feeling a lot more enlightened before, and that happened when I was mayor, and I was always impressed with his commitment to leadership. And so that's why you guys are doing well. And it's a challenge. And one of the most important things in nonprofit management is understanding that you have a mission, you have an impact, and then you always evaluate your programs and you always try to improve. And I think what we're seeing here is we've had adaptive management. We're always moving, striving to do better, always striving to improve, and understand that we have to change or we won't do as well. So that's important. For me, the most important thing is that I ran for office primarily because the most important asset we have in this community are kids. I came out of a no money family and I was a kid, and the Boys and Girls Club, Little League at Southwest, Parks and Rec in the city, swimming lessons at the city, Boy Scouts, right? Cub Scouts. And I would argue, and I'm not sure the lieutenant, but he'd probably agree that one of the reasons we have a low crime rate is because at some point, every kid in this city, someone's watching out for him and they're involved with something. And I know all of us work collectively to make sure that everyone's covered. And the more activities we can, it's surfing or Thai boxing or whatever it is, beach volleyball, great. That means that 5 more kids that might be involved, 5 more kids that aren't going to have a problem, or someone's taking care of it. 5 more areas of leadership they can get involved in. So my feeling is every dollar we spend is that's $10,000 we save by, in the criminal justice system and making sure these kids have healthy, productive lives. So the output we're looking for here in this city is investing in our kids and our families and the quality of life, and we're creating health and happiness. So thank you for that, because it's worth every penny that we spend, and we're going to be looking as the years go by to be more like communities in the Mountain West, in Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado, where I know you have worked, and Assistant City Manager Steve Dish have worked, and I've really admired these small cities that have these very vibrant parks and rec programs and facilities, because they understand it's the single most important investment a city can make. So anyway, I just want to thank you guys again, and acknowledge Mark, but more importantly, Don and Ken, all that you've done for this city, and more importantly, all of these organizations that create health and happiness. And it's great to go on these opening nights and days of closing ceremonies of these programs, Little League and softball, because it's great. And then to go to the Little Boys and Girls Club. So those are the best days I have. Going to some ceremony, whatever event they invite me to, and it's just swarming with lots of little kids, and they could fuel the entire city if you put them on treadmills, and your staff do an amazing job with those kids. So anyway, pleased to be a donor, pleased that I was a member, pleased that my kids were members, and anyway, so thank you. With that, unless there's more, I enthusiastically entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2017-7863.
Second.
And just to wrap it up.
Motion carried unanimously.
As the city moves forward and we enhance our revenues. It's not to do nothing with those funds. And I think hopefully this council and city staff and our residents will identify how we can enhance and improve recreational opportunities for kids and families and seniors and everyone in the city. I think that's very clear from our residents. That's a priority in the city. That's the investment they want to see us make, and they see the output, they understand the output, and that's where they want us to see how we can do that. So I'm looking forward to that. Item 5.4, FY 218 and FY 2019 CIP 2-year implementation plan report. And Mr. Hall will introduce the item and then turn the presentation over to Public Works Director Minichilli and Civil Engineer Ilario.
Yeah, Mayor, that was a great segue because again, the CIP really represents a lot of those
Thanks, guys.
Improvements and investments that we're making in our community. But it's hard to believe, but we only have one more council meeting after this year. So as the year winds down, I know it's hard to believe, but we wanted to take an opportunity to just kind of summarize the year and some of the things that have happened in our Public Works Department and a lot of the capital improvements that have been completed or are ongoing and are under planning. So just want to turn some time over to Eric and let him take this away. And I think you'll be amazed with how much work has been done in the community in this past year. Sometimes we forget. So these summaries are a lot of fun to remember all the things that happened this year. So Eric, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to talk about the 2-year capital improvement program, give you an update of what's been going on, what's planning, and what's coming up, especially. It's 7:30, so I should promise to get you out of here by 10. This is a very long presentation, so please, if you have questions, jump in with them. It's going to be hard to remember those, so I know I don't have a problem with that, and I'm sure Juan doesn't either. We've got about the budget, the 2018 and 19 budget had 28 projects basically budgeted for it, 23 in the public works side, 5 on the sewer side. Just a couple shots there showing it looks like an alley project and one of the recent paving projects. This slide here just kind of shows you where's work happening in Imperial Beach, and it's everywhere. And this doesn't even show next year's projects coming up. So we've got projects happening throughout town. This presentation, we're going to group projects by status. So we have completed projects, under construction projects, and then projects under design. And then those are further grouped by the type of project. So we generally group our projects by facilities, sewer projects, streets projects, and then park projects. With that, I'm going to go ahead and it's my pleasure to introduce Juan Larios. He's our staff civil engineer in the Public Works Department. He's essentially the project manager for all these projects. He's got 2 inspectors that he works with, and then he also works with all our consulting engineers, the design consulting engineers, to get these projects designed and then built. So come on up, Juan.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. So we've been pretty busy in Public Works for the past year since I started. So the map you saw earlier, that's just depicting 9 projects. We got 28 projects. So that's a third of the projects that we have for the next couple years. And I'll go ahead and start with the completed projects, which are up here. So we have 3 completed projects. One is Public Works vehicle wash pit, and that's just wash pit and extra wash pit that was completed in the Public Works yard. We had one already, but it was used mostly by sewer, so just for hygiene purposes, and those are requested by a lot of people at Public Works. The next item is Benito Avenue sewer main upsize. And that's upsizing. We went ahead and upsized 320 lineal feet of sewer main, and that was 6-inch clay pipe. We upsized it to 10-inch PVC pipe. And the reason for doing that is because with the new Bayside landing, with all the projects coming into play and all the units being occupied shortly, that's 188 units. So that's a lot of units, more flow, and with 6 inches of sewer main there, it wasn't going to be able to take capacity to minimize any overflows that we would have. And lastly, it was a 495 Palm Ave purchase, and that was a property purchase on Palm. We got a future project for that. So I'm sure you guys well, anytime you guys come to City Hall, you've seen it. And this project is the Civic Center window projects, and it includes replacing the windows for the Civic Center, including City Hall, Sheriff's Department, and the Fire Department. A total of 80 windows, gold pane windows, and with aluminum frames. And it's not necessarily, it is aesthetically pleasing, these new windows, but they're also acoustically, they're better, and energy conservation standpoint, they're also better. So it was a good investment from the city to go ahead and complete this project. So currently we're working on punch list items, and those punch list items, they're getting worked on currently, but they'll completely be finished in February. Next project that's under construction is the sports park tot lot. And this tot lot, as you can see, suffered drainage issues before. It was just sand, and it was also outdated. So we went ahead and put together a project to replace the tot lot. Game Time was the manufacturer. We did board in place, rubberized surface. And the blue right there, as you can see under the swings, that's IB blue. And that is a special TPV insert, and that's for high traffic areas, so those can withstand those traffic. Same under the slides, hard to tell in this picture, but that's the case. We have drainage features as well, trench grate and French drain to help with the drainage issues in the area. And when it rains, it'll infiltrate. It's a board in place, permeable, so it'll infiltrate. We have dry wells for that. Next one, I'm sure you guys are real happy about this one, is the Veterans Park, dog park. So this has been in a lot of residents' minds for a long time, and it's almost complete. As you can tell, there'll be a ribbon cutting next month, and it's just going where we need to finalize the details, get some features in, such as benches and drinking fountains. So everything will be finalized, but we'll make sure you guys are able to use it and take your dogs to that park. This is another one that we're currently working on. These are all under construction. So this one, I'm sure you guys seen it. You can't miss it, Bicentennial Triangle Park. And this is called Bicentennial. It was built in 1976. So we're going ahead and updating the park. And we got a grant from Cal American Water. It was it helped with the project, and the grant was to create an area where it was including drought resistant plants. We're also putting some palm trees, royal palms, pink palms, and we got some walkways. We got a bench, new uplights for the trees. And this is a very special feature for the city. Besides the pier, when a lot of people think of Imperial Beach, they think of the Triangle Park. And if you're coming in from Imperial Beach, from Coronado, it's the landmark that makes you aware that you're in Imperial Beach. So we're currently working with the contractor, and should have it completed early next year. And we'll make sure to get everything tidied up, finalized. We'll let you know about the ribbon cutting that approach. This is another project currently under construction. We're in the punch list phase, pump station 4 and 6. And this actually came in a lot lower than the approved budget, less than about half, and which is good. And this is pump station. Currently at the city, we got 11 pump stations. The city's really flat. And so we got to figure out a way to get the water up back to gravity flow. And pump station 4 received new pumps and motors, along with new piping from the wet well to the force main, new electrical upgrades, lighting. And as you can tell on the picture to the left, that was before the pumps. Those are the pumps that were removed. And these are necessary upgrades to make sure our pumps are working right. And if we don't have any emergency that comes up, and we're scrambling. But it's definitely a great project for the city. These are things that don't really get seen, but are definitely vital in the city. Okay. This is another sewer project we're currently working on. And this is the project that's lining 4,000 lineal feet of sewer main. And that's 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch sewer main. Most of it is clay pipe. So with this lining, it's felt poly propylene plastic. So I can tell the details of how it works, but I'll bore you guys. But as you can see on your right hand side, that's what the pipe, the new pipe. So it's a new structure. Essentially, it's a new structure for the sewer main. And on your left hand side, you can see it's a pipe sewer main, and on the right hand side, there's a lateral. But the water gushing in is not coming in from the lateral. It's coming in from a break that's in the lateral, next to the lateral.
Hey, well, I would just want to add, we always talk a lot about infiltration. This is a graphic picture of infiltration.
Right. Exactly. And both pictures are from South Seacoast. And that's where we have a majority of our infiltration. With infiltration, our sewer costs go up. We got to treat the water. So this is an investment actually in our city by doing these types of projects. And that's the end product on your right hand side. And for the laterals, we'll do what's called the top hat to make sure we'll do the lining, do a cut right there in the lining, and then top hat it so that what you see on your left hand side with the brake, so that's completely taken care of. Bottom, you can see that was actually today on the bottom. That's some trucks from the contractor on IB Boulevard. So this work is getting done on Seacoast, South Seacoast, Seacoast, Palm Ave, Carnation, and Imperial Beach Boulevard. This is one of my favorites. It's the 8 Alley project. This is currently under construction. As you can tell, most of the alleys are in the Bayview neighborhood. There's 7 alleys up there. Then we have one in the central neighborhood, Alley 17. That's the only one that hasn't been started. And another one in the Oneonta neighborhood. That's Alley 37. And these alleys are the last alleys that are dirt alleys. They're being paved, concrete paving with permeable concrete to help mitigate any drainage concerns that they used to have. And I'll go ahead and go to this side right here. So this is an alley, as you can tell from the before picture. That's actually right behind the 7-Eleven between Georgia Street and 13th Street. So that's how it used to look a few months ago. And with this alley project, it's now, as you can see at the bottom, concrete pavement, which is going to last many, many years. You got the permeable concrete right there next to on your left-hand side, closer to the left-hand side, with dry wells. So that's to get infiltration back into the ground. And actually, when this got done, this alley, it was pretty touching. I went to the alley after the fact because I was there when it was getting paved. So I went at the end of the day, and there was about 3 kids coming back from school with their dad, and they live in the apartments. And I remember seeing the little girl's face just light up, and she grinned from ear to ear. So it was awesome. And a couple non-CIP projects on 13th Street. We're restriping those crosswalks. All the crosswalks on 13th Street, we'll get those restriped. We're putting in continental crosswalks, and reason being higher visibility and easier maintenance. And the Elm Ave striping, this is something that had been talked before here at the city council meeting. And it's at the intersection of 7th and Elm Ave. And it's doing putting some delineators, restriping for crosswalk to make it safer for students to cross Elm Ave. And lastly, new bike racks. We're putting new bike racks around the city. As you can see, there's one on the Soy Lot and Pier Plaza. And we still have some more inventory at the yard. And we're looking at getting the Lime Bike information. And based off of that, we'll go ahead and put more bike rack. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, so that concludes my presentation.
So we have obviously a lot of projects under construction right now. And just a personal note, when I was in Del Mar, the most projects I PM'd as project manager of at one time was 6 in construction. Right now we're at 8. We've got something special here in Juan, so be aware we got some very good talent in town. I'm very excited to be here. Design, projects under design right now. We've got the Sports Park, Veterans Park restroom replacement project. The plan there was to design both restrooms and then more likely bid one. So we were going to be going to bid this December with the Veterans Park restroom. The budget's at $428,000. That's not. We're going to be asking for some funds, and I think Mr. Bradley mentioned that there's maybe some funds available to boost that. It probably costs twice that much just for the one restroom. But I think that's always been the plan there. Other designs we have currently underway, the sidewalk infill projects. These happen periodically throughout town. This one's on Citrus. It's coming up. We're at about 60% complete on design. I expect that design to be complete in spring, and this will be a summer project. We got out there and put in new sidewalks, repave the surface of the roadway, make things nice. The RTIP FY 17-18 street improvement project is a typical annual project we do for roadway improvements as far as resurfacing. That's also aiming to be a summertime project. We're about 30% complete on design, and that'll kind of happen at about the same time as the Citrus Avenue project. So I'm seeing another summertime project there. This is where we get to some interesting stuff. This is as big a project as we have going on now. This is the major renovation project, Imperial Beach Boulevard. Right now, I'm pleased to announce that we've now received our 3rd grant funding on this project, and we're up to $5.6 million worth of grant funding on this project. Got the storm drain money, active transportation grant. I think the latest one was a green streets, or it's like a planting one related to trees and planting on your roadways. This is a very exciting project. We have the opportunity here to do a true boulevard from Seacoast to San Diego. And we're talking about maybe potentially right-of-way reallocation here, pedestrian and bicycle access and safety improvements, clean water improvements like we've discussed. This thing is a big project. We have got a stack of presentations on my desk right now. We're right now going through the engineering firms. About 8 engineering firms submitted for us to review their qualifications and select an engineering firm. And we're going to try to get to you in December with the contract to get an engineering firm under contract to get going on this project, because the bad news about grant funding is that there's a time frame. We have to move very quickly on this project. I intend to go to council in December with the contract. We would see the design start in January, and the goal here is to get that design complete by summer, so that next fall we are doing a major roadway project on Imperial Beach Boulevard. Before I go further, I want to kind of say how, when we have a project like this, what do we do in our department? Well, we go and talk to everybody. We talk to the port, we talk to the utilities and say, look, we're going to be doing something on this roadway. If you've got anything coming up, let us know, because I don't want to pave a roadway and have you cut into it 6 months later. When we did that, we talked to the port, and they have a big fiber optic project that they're talking about. They've got some Homeland Security grant funding. Their concept is to kind of create a duct bank of fiber optic that kind of runs the a circle around the port, all their port cities. And for us, they've been planning this project. The area in green is what they plan to install in Imperial Beach in a duct bank for this, future pole fiber optic. And when we found out about this, we said, okay, well, that's awesome. Why don't you give us, we'll put that in as part of this project. Obviously you pay for it, but we'll put it in as part of our project. We can get it done with a major project. Our per foot cost is going to be fractional compared to what they would have had to do if they did this project on their own 6 months before us. They can do it with us and get more done. Now that we sat there and know that we've got this fiber optic coming in and exactly where they're telling us to put it, what do we want to do? We want to kind of maybe look to extend that fiber optic on our own nickel to key facilities. So the red circles are all sewer pump stations. We've also shown here other city facilities, including my public works yard up in the upper top there. We want to make sure we go ahead and think about extending this fiber optic as part of the Imperial Beach Boulevard project, because it's going to be, the per foot cost is going to be very low. And in doing so, prepare for the future. Maybe we run that conduit to the adult learning facility out there and just have it stubbed out there in case City Hall ever, it's another facility. So that's exactly where we're at right now. We've returned comments back to the port, told them, hey, look, we love this, but we want to do this, add this part onto the design. And by the way, we're going to need a couple of those conduits for our own use. So we would have our own options there. When we do that, not only did we look ahead and talk to other agencies, we looked at our own CIP and said, hey, what other projects could tie into this? If we decide to go forward with trenching on Seacoast, maybe it's time to think about a project that's been on the CIP for a while, the Community Enhancement Project, Seacoast Drive, that's related to lighting on Seacoast. We aren't exactly talking about putting in the lights at this point, but if we're going to be trenching Seacoast for other uses, maybe it makes sense to go ahead and put the underground infrastructure that would be needed for a project like that in the ground now as part of this project. And once the details of the true enhancement project get kind of sorted out in the future, as far as how much lights, what the lights are, that kind of thing, at least the infrastructure in the ground is already there. The cable in the ground exists, so that that project could be a lot cheaper going forward, combined with a project like this. So staff's intention at this point is to incorporate the 30% design that we have for the community enhancement project, the underground part of it, into the IB Boulevard project, in addition to options to extend the fiber optic beyond what the Port District is given to us so far. This might be an item of discussion here tonight. And just the images there show some visual simulations that we had, the city had done previously, existing conditions versus potential, what that could look like if lighting ended up being enhanced. The other major project on the books is a Palm Avenue master plan. I think they're at 30% design and so far. And this project really kind of relies on it's got two important items to consider. And they are the coastal campus, the Navy's work that's happening to our northwest, I guess, and the SR-75 relinquishment. The coastal campus work is going to be a project that lands on us. We need to, the Navy's doing what they're doing, and at some point, all their new buildings and all their people are going to show up, and they're going to produce sewage that's going to be beyond the ability of the city's sewage system to accept. And so we're planning now and talking now with the Navy about, well, we need to do some improvements to be able to take your wastewater through our system and out to San Diego for treatment. There's basically two options, but the option we're pursuing most fervently, because it is the best option, is to extend a force main down to Palm Avenue from the Navy base, and then just run it right down 75 all the way out to we've got some major gravity lines at the very east end of town. There's a lot of reasons why this is the top option, the best. We're not pumping the same sewage 4 times. If we just dumped it into the gravity mains on Seacoast, one, we'd have to upsize the gravity mains on Seacoast. Those things are very deep. and very expensive to do. There's a lot of groundwater, that kind of thing. Then that sewage is getting pumped by 4 different cities' pump stations before it gets out of town. We feel very confident the Navy's sewage can pump right out with their pumps that they have now, right down 75. And again, we wouldn't be going very deep. The sewer force mains are small 10-inch pipes. They're buried 3.5, 4 feet deep, no groundwater, that kind of thing. The work happens quickly, and it doesn't impact residents near as much. A lot of good reasons to do this. But we're still in a lot of discussions with the Navy about the feasibility of this. But that work, combined with the fact that there's no way I want to try to do that work if we don't have 75 under our control, because Caltrans is a monster to deal with. And that 75 relinquishment and the coastal campus work is hand in hand as far as I'm concerned. So with that, I'm happy to open up the question. No, this is just a report. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I skipped a bunch of facilities.
I was wondering.
My bad. Finally, we do have, oh, no problem. Facilities underway, design, civic center renovations, senior center facelift. These are just kind of work to get, safety issues we have, electrical, flooring, that kind of thing that we want to address. A little budget for those. So those are going to be happening this winter. And then finally, another project that's under design is the senior center, the full design of the senior center. That's a 30% complete. I think they're looking at fall 2018 for the completion of that. Obviously, at that point, you'll figure out how we're going to pay for the bigger facility at that point. That's it.
Yes. Could you go back to the picture of the tot lot, please?
Absolutely.
I've had really, really good feedback from a lot of our residents as far as the tot lot. They are very excited about it. The one thing that I've had a couple complaints about is that there's not a swing for like toddlers. I mean the little bucket seat that goes with it. I've had a lot of the ladies in our community have flooded my email. Let's put it that way.
That should be something that we can address pretty easily.
Okay, great. And then could you go to a picture of the dog park, please? So one thing that is it one of the things that's really difficult when you're bringing a dog into a dog park is bringing a leash dog into an off-leashed area. Dogs are naturally put up their defenses on it, and it's kind of most of the things that I recommend that we look at is if we can get what I would refer to as a de-leash area where you can. Yes, exactly.
This has that. We didn't show the picture, but we have an area where that opening there is not for the dogs. That's for our equipment. But there's an area when you step in, there's a kind of a second containment area, and that's where you're supposed to be.
Excellent. Great. Thank you so much. And then could you go to the alley picture too? Yeah.
Sorry.
Where they're doing the alleys. There's one alley that that I'm not sure is being missed, or if I'm just not. But there's a small one that's going off Encina over to Delaware, and it's a very small alley, but it's still dirt. And I know that I just want to make sure that one gets done as well.
Yeah, Councilman West, there's actually 3 there, and we've been talking with the neighbors. They don't function very well as alleys, so we've been talking to them about vacation as long as we can keep an easement for infrastructure. So we probably won't improve those alleys. We'll probably work with the neighbors on vacation of that property so they can incorporate it in their yards, but maintain their utility easement for us.
Even better.
They're very short.
Yeah, I know. Even better. That's great. And then I want you to know, Mr. Loris, you did an awesome job. Thank you very much. Thanks for all the information. The fiber optics, I think, would you go to that picture real quick? This is an opportunity, and I love that you're really thinking about this from what's this going to do for us in the next 20 years? We have the opportunity with this fiber to really bring in some smart city, make IB almost like the test plan for smart cities throughout this area, because this fiber is what the port is talking about is a very powerful fiber optic network that not very many cities have. And so I am extremely excited that you guys are thinking about that way and linking all of our different communities. And I would think about some other things, not just sewer, but we could do
traffic signal.
Exactly. All these things that are all linked in there. And then last but not least, I was by the alleys. I was contacted by 2 residents over there off behind 13, by the 7-Eleven, who couldn't stop raving about the work that you guys did. So not only were they happy about it getting done, but the way you did it too. They were really excited that they felt like you guys really, really got to it, got done, and improved it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minatelli. Thank you for this. This is just a great undertaking, just putting this presentation together. I too had a comment on the dog park, and perhaps Mr. Dush will remember when he and I were taking tours of senior centers, and we had gone to one that had a little dog area in it, but there was an opportunity, and we kind of coined the phrase bags and tags. So there was an opportunity where you could get a doggy bag, but you could also, if your pet had passed away, that you could attach their dog tag to a post there. And it was really touching, and just, it was, for pet owners, it was just a great opportunity, because, sometimes what do you do with that? But it was kind of just a great kind of memento to those pets as well. On your slide about the bathrooms, Veterans Park restrooms and sports park, I'm not going to extract a promise from you this evening, but I'd like a promise from you this evening. Sure would be nice that if these could be completed by the summer 2018. This has been on our project list a very long time, and I'm glad to see it here in this presentation tonight. Thank you for including it. I too is really I'm really excited about the fiber optic plan, but what pleases me more is your forward thinking on, okay, so we're doing a project to approach the other stakeholders, especially corner of Seacoast and Ivy Boulevard, the new hotel there. Mr. Hall, you and I had talked about this a long time ago, that when we're doing a project, we want to reach out to everybody else and say, okay, let's do it right the first time. So that's what I'm seeing here with this plan as well. And you're right, Councilmember West, this is really an eye to the future and being prepared for the future and what that, and all what that holds. 20 years is going to go by in the blink of an eye. And I don't want to be sitting here going, no, why didn't we think of that, 20 years back? Other than that, you guys are busy over there at Public Works, and there's never a dull moment. And I'm just always pleased with the more proactive approach that department takes than being reactive, especially with our sewer system. We've heard just here this past week of major sinkholes in other areas, and that could be us, but I think with that department always being on top of things, that's not us. Thank you for that. Thank you for this as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to both of you. And we have a can-do city. Our city doesn't spend a lot of time talking. We spend a lot of time doing. So thank you. You hit the ground running. Appreciate that. But it's all about getting. I just won the Getting Things Done award for the Chamber of Commerce. So
that's not
there you go.
That was not what the award said.
What is it called? Well, whatever. Getting stuff done. Anyway, we're getting stuff done. Really pleased about the sidewalks and the alleys. This council, before I came on board, had made a commitment to paving alleys throughout the city, and that's being done. Have we thought about the rest of the remaining alleys over in they're called Seaside Point or whatever that funny name is? Is that something we've been talking about at all?
We are. There will probably be not only another alley project, but there are some existing alleys that need repair. Okay. So we're not done, but we've made a lot of progress.
Love the Citrus sidewalk project, and I think the issue with sidewalks is it's just very clear to me, and I'm not sure why this happened, that there's entire swaths of the city without sidewalks, and then some people have sidewalks and other people don't. For issues of handicap access, and then just child safety, and people pushing strollers. Definitely want to make sure we treat our neighborhoods equitably. So any commitment this council can make in the future to identifying a strategy for working on sidewalks as we have more money would be great, and when we get more grants for that. And then oh, I want to throw it out there, skate park. I'm not sure if there's any plans in the future to enhance the skate park, but definitely that was a commitment I think the city had made a while ago, and it'd be nice to see if we could just build out the skate park and maybe use that as a storm drain issue.
Yeah, Mayor, we have discussed that as staff of what we can do to tie that into the storm drainage project on IB Boulevard. So,
good, okay, because I don't think we're talking about really expensive stuff. I think it's like skate plaza type things, And then finally, we had a pretty robust discussion about Ivy Boulevard, and I know Councilmember Sprigg, you'd come up with really the idea that if we're going to improve Ivy Boulevard, especially the beach, that we have some sort of eco theme, wildlife theme in there. So let's just think about that when we get the design in, whether or not they're wildlife related crosswalks or we work with the estuary to have that corridor. I'm assuming we'll have to be designers. So anyway, we just want to thank you and this council and the staff for moving forward. I love seeing people working and improving the city. And we have a lot of work going on around the city. So anyway, good with that. I think we're done. Mr. Spriggs.
I concur, and I haven't said anything in the last 2 items because my voice is about all gone now, but great job, guys.
Thank you. All right, we're done. I think we're out of here. Adjourned. Meeting